This is Rich.
Hi.
Hey,
Hi.
Chris. Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
No, who's going to be doing the talking? Christina and...
Heather.
I don't know if both or just Lauren. I don't know how you. I don't know how you want to do
You guys
it.
could sit right over here.
Sure.
You guys can sit right over here.
Okay.
And, I appreciate you coming over here to do this today. Yeah, and, you know, I looked at the website. There's a lot of material there.
You can grab the sheet and I'll get you guys set up. This clip is going to go right up in front of you.
If one of the questions is this our website? It is not our website, but we're thankful for it because
Okay.
it's the only reason that we're alive right now,
Okay.
and that's my firm belief.
Well, obviously, that's one of the questions because we didn't know. You know,
Yes.
when you look at the website, it looks as though it's yours.
Yes.
You know what I mean? That's
Yes.
the natural thing. So.
I understand, but they've been trying really hard to ask us, different people asking us what type of encryption we use.
Oh, I'm
because
not,
I think
not
there's-
interested in it.
No,
Yeah.
I'm letting you know that
Yeah.
they're trying hard to get that site down because of.
Who is that? Who's that?
They've sent, state trooper, Troop A, New York
Riford.
State Police to come and ask us.
So you've been asked about it, like by the authorities?
We've been asked by numerous people. They asked us directly,
Yeah, it's fine if it works.
whether we had more recordings of the FBI, because we wanted to discuss. We were interested in the corruption surrounding my sister's custody case.
Right.
And we were very alarmed by the specific reporting of Brian Burns. We had a conference call with him, and in listening back to the recording, we heard other people
In the background?
yes, someone telling Brian Burns directly, tell Kevin he did a good job, and then Brian Burns says that very thing to Kevin.
Yeah,
like,
hey Kev, you did a good job, but someone before that tells him, tell him he did a good job, and that's what he states. And there's other parts in there, like lock the car, bring an handgun,
Right.
let's kill him. And the thing is, there's this person named Kelly Marshall from CBP.
Is that an actual person?
I don't believe it is, because I've called Border Patrol probably 7 to 10 times,
Yeah.
somewhere in between that, and I'm
Right.
like, hey, can you get me into contact with Kelly Marshall? I'm always met with, she's away, or what is this concerning, or she'll give you a call back at her earliest convenience,
Right.
and I never get back
You
to
don't
her.
hear anything back.
Because I don't believe Kelly Marshall is a real person. I believe she's a fictitious person that was put in place there to impede an investigation.
Okay.
and now looking back at it, because I encouraged my brother and sister to go to the FBI because of the harassment that Vito and his crew were doing to my sister. They weren't doing private surveillance. They were literally making themselves known, following close to her bumper. She thought.
Your sister,
Yes, my sister,
Katie.
who's not here. And
Right.
I honestly, at this point, don't even know if she's alive. I actually think, I know this is horrible to say because I don't want my mom to hear it, but I think they have her. I think they have her.
your sister? No, what about the kids?
I think they have them too. I know that sounds crazy, but I honestly think that they're trying to make it seem like they're looking for them. And the reason I feel this way is because we haven't had any physical, verbal contact with her since she left.
Yeah.
We have no idea, but they are trying so hard to incriminate us in her disappearance. they're going to if you listen to.
So this is all good stuff you're telling us.
Okay.
Why don't we just roll with this interview?
Right.
But you
If there's
guys-
something
you
you don't feel comfortable with
It's
talking
not live.
about, just say,
Okay.
can I stop, or can I restate that, or, cause it's recorded.
And,
Okay.
you know, another thing I just wanna say real quick is, I played this audio for numerous other people, regarding Brian Burns.
Right.
From the FBI, and they have confirmed exactly what I thought that I had heard as well. So it's not just me and her thinking this in her head,
Right.
I've confirmed it with other people, that's what they heard as well.
Okay, okay. But let's pick it up what you were just saying, Christina, you were talking about your worst fear here.
Yeah.
Tell us about what that is.
My worst fear is that Katie and her kids there's no way that I don't believe in my heart that they could be on the run for this long and be safe, in my opinion. I do, I believe that at first I was hopeful that she would be safe through all of this, but they have the FBI backing them on this. And I'd like to know, the FBI has never once reached out to us. We've tried numerous times. I sent a memo on their tip line telling them my concerns about Brian Burns and thinking that he's a rogue agent because of our feelings on the investigation with Kelly Marshall, who we don't think exists.
Mm-hmm.
He did tell us in the beginning that he had a working relationship with Peter Vito, but it wasn't a close working relationship. He had worked with him a few times.
Okay.
And then we find out later that he actually knew Peter Vito very well because he was involved in a sexual harassment case that his wife filed against her former boss, who is she worked for the district attorney in Niagara County.
Okay.
So we're up against some.
So let's
very-
backtrack just a little bit, cause there's a lot to digest here and unpack, right? So I wanna, so your sister, goes missing, when was it?
In February.
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 And the kids too,
Yes,
the two kids, right?
yes.
Do you believe that, obviously the kids are with mom, right, your sister?
I don't know. I mean, I can only assume that they'd be together. I know that she was concerned about the welfare of her kids and she would do anything to keep them safe. They had experienced a lot of abuse during visitations, and all of the investigations were being completely impeded. Like, every time my sister went to the police, no one would follow through on anything. She'd file a complaint, no one would follow through.
Right. And I wanna get to that in
sure.
just a second, we'll get to
Okay.
that. Trust me, I'm just gonna kinda move it along.
Sure.
So, okay, so you haven't, I'm assuming you haven't talked to her
We have not.
since February, right?
Right.
Okay. And the reason why she goes missing is,
Because we saw how the court case was going. She knew that those kids were going to be sent to Boston no matter what.
the father.
The father, she tried twice to get an order of protection from the judge because Peter was making harassing phone calls to my sister and her children. They were recorded, so there was no disputing. It wasn't a case of he said, she said. She recorded it because she was concerned about her welfare and her children's welfare.
Mm-hmm.
And both times, the judge didn't make a ruling on it. She didn't deny it, and she didn't go in Katie's favor either. She just left it open-ended, which is highly suspicious to me because we're told by numerous officials in the police that family court hands out orders of protection like candy. They give them out to pets. And for some reason, my sister couldn't even get a temporary one until they could get the issues resolved, if they could. Then my sister's abuser manages to get an order of protection against my sister after her disappearance. And I'm trying to figure out how, he was able to get one with no valid reasons, because one wasn't listed on the order of protection. There was no reasoning or rationale on there for why he was granted an order of protection against my sister. She had no history of violence towards her kids. She'd never had CPS reports against her throughout the whole custody case. If there was a history there or a pattern, you would have seen it in the transcript. There was nothing to indicate that my sister was a bad mother to those kids.
Okay. So my understanding is that the judge in Niagara County issued, there was a court order granting the father, Peter,
Yes.
custody of the children.
Sole custody.
Sole
yes.
custody of the children, right?
Right.
Okay. And so, your sister, Katie, was supposed to, I assume, surrender the kids to the father at some point, and...
Yes, I mean, on the 15th of February.
Well,
Okay.
if you want me to get into that a little bit, I don't know if you want to go there right now, or if you want to keep where you are, but on the 15th, about probably 7 p.m., I was at my brother-in-law's house, her house as well, to watch the UV Bulls game, basketball game. It was a Friday.
Brother-in-law.
My husband.
It was a Friday night. And I get a phone call from my mom saying someone's knocking at the door frantically, ringing the doorbell numerous times, and I'm scared. I don't know who's at the door. I thought it was my sister's ex
Mhm.
there. So I said, don't worry, I'm going to call the police and I'm going to hurry home as fast as I can, which I did. Called the police on my way home, and I'm in front of Wegmans on the Niagara Falls Boulevard, and I get a phone call from what's now known to be a Niagara County Sheriff's officer named Nick Faso, and he asked, who are you? I asked who he is first when he called, because he didn't say, Nick Faso with Niagara County Sheriff's. What he said was, are you Katie's brother? And I said, who's calling? Which he didn't really want to answer at first, but eventually, he did tell me
Right.
who it was. And he says, why didn't you open the door to your house when I was there? And I said, sir, I'm not even at home. I said, my mom is in the house, scared to death, by herself, and I'm
Right.
and then I asked him. I pulled into the Colton RV parking lot in Niagara Falls Boulevard, because that's where I was at the point. I said, hey, I'm right at Colton RV. It's literally 2 minutes away from my house. It's practically behind my house almost. I said, can you just come here and meet me, and we could talk about whatever you want to talk about there? And essentially he said, I don't call the shots, and he proceeded to hang up on me. So I said, okay, the guy doesn't want to talk like he initially claimed he did. He wouldn't tell me why he wanted to talk on the phone either, so it must not be important enough to warrant a conversation. And so I'm literally 2 minutes away from home, so I say, let's go check on my mother. I'm already home, see how she's doing, to let her know who was there. So I go home, and I come to my house, and there's a Niagara Falls County Sheriff officer sitting in front of my house with his engine still running. His brake lights are on, so I know the car is on.
Right.
And he pulls away slowly, and at that point in time, I thought, this guy still wants to talk. He's here. So I follow him for probably roughly somewhere in the realm between 4 to 5 minutes, at which point he makes a U-turn on Kruger Road where his car is facing my car. At that point, I roll down my window, I wave my hand to get his attention, and he rolls down his. I said, hi, my name is Kevin Riford, do you want to talk? He states, only if you want to be cooperative this time. So I said, okay, at which point I make a left down a road, which I believe is Mavis Road, and he pulls up behind me, and he puts his lights on. He proceeds to get out of his car, and he comes up to my window, and then he asks me various questions, one of which is, did you know that Judge DeLabio granted full custody of your sister's kids to Peter? in which I answer him. And at that point, he keeps on asking me questions, like, where she is, and I answer him. And at which point I start to feel uncomfortable because two other officers come and they start waving flashlights on the inside of my car. I had nothing in there. I wasn't charged with anything being in there. However, what happened was, at which point I asked for a lawyer at that point. Like I said, I started to feel uncomfortable. And he says, why don't you call your lawyer? And I said, sir, I can't call a lawyer. It's 7-something at night. I don't think, many lawyers are available at this hour. I roll my window, I call my sister, I just tell her what's going on. At which point Nick Faso goes to talk to the two other police officers behind my vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
At which point, probably between 3 to 4 minutes elapse, and he comes back to my car, tells me to roll down my window, which I do, and I get off of my phone with my sister. At which point he tells me to get out of my vehicle, and I'm going to be placed under arrest. I say, sir, what am I going to be placed under arrest for? What have I done here that warrants that? He says you were following me in a public place. So he proceeds to put me in the back of his cruiser, and he goes in the front of it. At which point I ask him again, sir, what am I being arrested for? He goes, you were following me in a public place, and then he proceeds to say, you were tailgating me. I said, sir, why are you lying about this? I said, why? And so we proceed
I mean, who would tailgate a police officer, especially one that came?
So my phone was in my cup holder up in
Mm-hmm.
the front. I left it there, and I said, can you grab my phone for me? He says I don't know where it is, and then he doesn't go ahead and do it. So my car's towed there. I had to pay $300 towing fee for that. I had to post a $100 bail from the Niagara County Sheriff's Office that same night. I believe I was there for roughly 2.5 to 3 hours, maybe less. And on the way to the jail, he said some interesting things to me. Well, at least I think they're interesting. At one point, he said, when we're still parked, after the initial arrest, he says, "Did you know that Peter Dyer Bakerly is going to go over to your sister's house?" And I'm like, holy SHIT, this guy officer is telling me that my sister's ex is going to go to my sister's house. Why is he saying this to me? I tried to make small talk with him in the car. I felt like my life was in danger with just him in there. I asked him about just small talk, like where did he go to school? He said he went to school at Buffalo State. I said, do you have a family? And he tells me he did. And I mean, I said, what do you mean you did? He says, well, my wife died in a car crash. And then he says, any more questions? And I said, no, sir.
So are you, in other words, this is part of the harassment? This, what happened to you, you're saying this is part and parcel of what's going on?
I consider that to be a form of harassment because it's a false arrest. I am being arrested for second-degree harassment, which, if you don't already know, in New York State, second-degree harassment is a violation.
Sure. It's a parking ticket.
It's essentially the equivalent of a parking ticket.
It's very hard to prove intent, but here's why
just 1 second, I want to get to this point.
Okay.
I did foil the Niagara County Sheriff's Office. That's what the town prosecutor, Matt Brooks, said I had to do to obtain this video, because it will show that me and the officer conversed for this elapsed time frame before he decided to arrest me when I asked for a lawyer. One would think that if I was tailgating this officer, that I would have been arrested promptly on the spot. We wouldn't have agreed to talk just for him to talk to me for 8 minutes, then just to arrest me after I asked a lawyer. It doesn't make very much sense. And I had foiled it from the Niagara County Sheriff's Office, and they said, we're not going to release the video because it could be used for different things like promotions, for Nick Faso's future promotions and stuff. It was essentially a canned response.
Okay. Where does the case stand now?
It's still
The case is pending in the town of court of Wheatfield.
Town of Wheatfield?
Wheatfield Town Court.
Okay.
And
so that he was arrested in February, and we're now in October. The court adjourned the last court date and
Okay.
so
But you're
we're
fighting
waiting.
it, right? You're
I
you're
correct,
fighting
I'm
it.
fighting it, I'm not, they want me
They're trying very
to
hard.
take an ACD, which essentially is, don't get in trouble for
6 months.
6 months, and it will be wiped off your record. But as I told my previous lawyer, if the 6 months has elapsed already between the time of my arrest and up until now, I've been very adamant about my innocence. If I had committed this violation, I would have taken their offer, but I did not commit this violation that this officer's claiming.
Okay. So, what I've been able to gather off the website, correct me if I'm wrong, and let's talk about that first of all. You're saying the website that's up, missedplacepower.org, right, is not yours.
It's not.
It's being run by somebody else?
Yes. Anonymously.
Do you know this person who's running it?
I don't know them personally, no.
Because there's a video of you up there, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
There
How'd
is.
they get that video?
Well, you'd have to ask them, but I think they want to be anonymous.
Okay.
I think that there's a lot of, with dealing with these people, very powerful people, I think there's a lot of people who are scared of what the repercussions are for sharing truth. And if this could happen to my family, this could happen to anybody.
Okay. But they're getting the information, there's a lot of information up there, right? There's
There is.
documents, there's audio recordings and all sorts of stuff, so, I mean, I think they're getting it from somewhere,
It's
right?
up for the
Yeah.
world to see.
Yeah.
Because I think, with family court corruption, it's a secretive thing. Nobody sees what's really happening. Everybody says it's a he said, she said, but is it really he said, she said when there's transcripts, pleadings, documents showing that harassment's happening, that judges aren't doing what's in the best interest of the children, that something else is going on?
What's going on? Well, you tell us what's going on.
Well, I think that at first I thought that, oh, this is just a very powerful family that hired a powerful attorney.
What is it, Dyer Bakerly?
Yes.
Is that how you say it? Peter
is.
Dyer Bakerly?
Peter
Okay.
Dyer
His
Bakerly.
family, okay.
His family.
All right.
But I knew my sister was in trouble, and I was apprehensive about getting involved at first. You know, a lot of people look down on single mothers, and I was one of those people. You know, I worked hard to get the life I have. I'm a registered nurse. I have a daughter. We had through marriage. I had my own idea of what the right way to go about things was. And I did. I had judgment against my sister. But there was one moment when I was looking through everything that I knew something was wrong. And that was, I called my old boss. I worked for an attorney before becoming a nurse. And I asked him about Judge DeLabio. And he told me that she was very pro-father. He knew of this because she had worked for a law clerk for many years. And when he told me that, my heart sank because my sister's first attorney told her to wait to reply to Peter's initial petition for custody. And she told her to wait because Judge Batt was about to retire and Judge DeLabio would take over. And she said that Judge DeLabio would be more in favor for her if she waited until Judge DeLabio took over. I do not believe she was giving her credible information. I think she intentionally told my sister to hold off in replying so that they would get Judge DeLabio. I believe it because the legal community is small and everybody knows how people generally feel about matters, and my former boss said that she was definitely known to be pro-father, and so the information she gave her was absolutely false. And for an attorney to do that to their own client is I don't know, incomprehensible. I don't understand how that could happen.
So the father, this Peter Dyer Bakerly,
Yes.
he's from
Boston.
Massachusetts, right? And from what I can gather from the website, that he has influence, power. He comes from a family of money, I guess.
I don't think he personally does.
Yeah.
I think he works for his family. He lives at home, and he's being fueled by their connections and their money. But I'm curious though to know, and I'd like somebody to find out for me how this family could have this much power in Buffalo. I mean, if we were in their hometown, I could see it working a little bit better in their favor, but they came to our hometown where my sister was born and raised and managed to turn a whole city against her and my family. And I need somebody to tell me how that's possible, because this isn't the President of the United States. This isn't some, huge celebrity with all kinds of influence. Where is their power coming from? We have military helicopters flying over our house on a weekly basis. He had a sea
Customs and Border Protection
helicopter flying so low that the houses were rumbling. He has a video of that as well. How are people making this happen? How is one family making that happen? I have my theories, but they're theories.
And there's even people, I don't want to mention names.
Okay.
Wait.
But there's-
Wait. Oh, sorry.
That's all right, you didn't know, and I just thought it was running away.
And there's even people, I don't want to mention specific names,
Okay.
but they've said that they've seen the harassment, particularly in her neighborhood, as far as cars, and gestures cars have given, and things like that.
I actually filed a report against one of the harassers, and it happened to be the daughter of Peter Vito. And this was way after reporting their behavior to the FBI and having them do an investigation that was never really done. I made the mistake of thinking that the FBI being at the very top of law enforcement, that they would do their job and
So you approached the
investigate.
FBI early on for
Yes.
help?
We did.
After this court ruling?
No.
Or before?
No,
or
during the court proceedings.
What did you want them to do, the FBI?
I went to them because we were being harassed, and every time we went to local police, nobody was doing anything. And I thought, we can't go anywhere for help.
Oh,
so
I see.
The FBI is the one place that we felt they were gonna
Who was
look
doing
into it.
you say you were being harassed by whom?
Peter Vito was hired by the Dyer Bakerly family to intimidate my sister, and he claims that he's never been in trouble before. They have a multi-million-dollar business. He would never jeopardize his reputation. He's been known to practice outside the scope of private investigating. There was a letter that was sent to Mark Polencars about it, and we actually prepared a package with our evidence in addition to that to show Mark Polencars we're in trouble and we need help. And that's a whole nother
Right.
issue with the package.
But so you went to the FBI,
Yes.
and what were they able to do anything for you?
We met with Brian Burns about 4 times in person, and I had numerous communications with him back and forth via email to his email at the FBI. And they did absolutely nothing. He said, I really feel for you guys. I wish there was something more I could do. I said, I'd like to understand how someone from out of state could come here and harass my sister, her children, and my family, and it's not considered a federal offense. If you look on federal stalking laws on their website, it clearly states it's not just through cyberspace. It's when people cross state lines with the intent to harass, stalk, intimidate, it's a federal offense.
Okay.
And I
They
felt
didn't-
that the FBI should have done more, and they didn't.
But at some point now, there's an audio tape, right, that's up on the website with this Burns.
Yes,
Where he says something where he wants to kill you guys, or?
if you listen to our conversation and the comments that are made in conjunction with it, you get the feeling that because he's being cooperative with what he knows about the private investigators that were stalking my sister, when you hear that, you know that they're upset that he's willing to testify to being identified, to be able to identify these people.
Correct, and Brian Birds had asked me on that phone call, can you identify these two individuals that were doing this? And I said, most certainly, I could definitely do that, and I would be happy to do that. And that's how
And
that
that's-
went.
And in that in that recording, he apparently says, what?
Well, there's several statements. There's lockpick the car. There's investigate the gray car over, it's his sister. There's bring a handgun. Leave a mess. And let's kill him. And I have called the FBI as well to let them know that I do have this audio and where they could find this audio. And I haven't heard back from anyone since.
Nobody from the FBI?
No, and we actually, our phones have been tapped for quite some time, and we've actually had calls diverted as well. I encouraged my brother to borrow someone's phone on campus to make sure that the call to the DC field office at the FBI would get that phone call, because I was concerned that if he made it from his phone, it would just be diverted. So he called from a stranger's phone to make sure he got through, and the operator identifies herself with her operator number and places him on hold.
Okay.
After he tells her, I feel like my life's in danger. And then she comes back and says, oh, call 911 if you feel your life is in danger, and it goes nowhere. We have not heard a single word from the FBI directly.
Okay.
And they've also foiled CBP as well to try to uncover the identity of Kelly Marshall to see if she's even an active employee, Border Patrol agents there, which has been denied as well.
I want to know whose voice that is on the, I want to know who Kelly Marshall is. We were talking directly to Kelly Marshall, was asking my brother specific questions. I want to know who Kelly Marshall is. Who is that voice? Somebody in Buffalo knows who that voice is. We don't. Somebody does.
The bottom line here, just so we understand this correctly, all right, is that it's your feeling, your strong feeling, that there is a conspiracy by law enforcement in this area?
Well,
to,
see, I wanna
you say it.
Stop you right there, because I will not use the word conspiracy, because now the FBI has determined that conspiracy theorists are domestic terrorists. We're not domestic terrorists. We're not anti-law enforcement. I'm actually very pro-law enforcement. I am a nurse. We work hand in hand with each other.
So how would you describe it then?
I would describe it as a family being terrorized by people in power in this city. How does Peter Vito have the power to manipulate various police agencies? How are their investigators able to call the police and say, oh, don't worry, it's just us, we're just following them, and they just leave it, and the police just leave it alone? How does this man have so much power in Buffalo? I'd love to know myself how he has that much power. It's not a conspiracy when there's written proof of these things happening and no one's doing anything about it. That's not a conspiracy.
But not only written proof, there's audio and video.
Well, conspiracy in the sense of the definition that a group of people, organizations, others are banding together to do something.
Well,
In that sense.
okay,
We don't
okay.
think there's a specific band of people like, oh, it's Nair County, Erie County. I personally believe it is specific people that know each other.
Yes. I
From
mean,
these
and we
entities.
know this in past experiences. I'm sure you know, covering the news, that people stick together. I mean, if something's happening to someone, one thing that I have been facing on social media is harassment from these various Twitter handles. Oh, Cadence, can you go over? Sorry, I'm sorry.
You want to be part of this?
Yeah.
She's okay.
Yeah, go with me, okay? Basically telling me that I'm defaming a good man's character. I'm not doing anything except showing people what's happening to our family. And if that is defaming a good man's character, then that person needs to look at themselves in the mirror and ask themselves what they're doing. Because we've never had any run-ins we've never had problems before this. And all of a
Before
sudden.
the custody.
Yes, and now we're being labeled as a criminal family. Peter Vito coming to my in-laws and telling them that I'm a ringleader and that my brother's a terrorist or part of a terrorist group, that anti-law enforcement.
You were
That's the
mentioning that
furthest
before we
thing.
get started here. What was the
Right.
name of the? What is
Peter
it?
Vito said I am a member of something called Sovereign Citizens, which I am not a member of this group. I have no affiliation with them, and to be honest, I don't even know where they would operate. I mean, are they operating in some sewer in Buffalo? I mean,
Yeah. Okay.
And you know what bothers me, and my mother-in-law, she's a wonderful woman. She pointed out a very important fact when Peter Vito came to her house, and that was, he said he was presenting facts to her, but he's on Peter's payroll. So are those facts being skewed to favor his own client? Because he's kind of putting it out there that he's law enforcement, and he's not. He's not law
Yeah.
enforcement.
The father of the children,
Yes.
this Peter Dyer Bakerly, he shouldn't have custody of the children. He shouldn't have custody of the children.
Well, here's the thing. In the beginning, I was telling my sister before anything happened, I said, listen, you had children with this man, you may not like him, things didn't work out, you know, you have to find a way to make it work. But when we started seeing on visitations them coming back with physical injuries, diaper rashes that were severe, reporting this to ER doctors and urgent care doctors, yeah, there's concerns about that, especially with the history of domestic violence he has towards my sister previous to this even starting.
and I would just like to.
on.
Sorry.
And when I
Look at
asked,
you.
let's just look at Luke back,
Sure.
like he asked it. Are there actual police records, law enforcement records of any of this?
There are not. My sister had a very long relationship with this man. It was long distance. They communicated by email, by text. That was a very big part of their relationship. That's how they communicated.
Right.
My sister, I think, knew that it was gonna come to this someday, and she documented everything. She kept records of everything. She was threatened the day that my niece was born, that he could take my niece away at any time. And he used that as control over her since the day my niece was born. He wanted her aborted, and I actually intervened. My sister came to me and asked me if I could get them to stop harassing her because they were pressuring her very heavily to abort that child. And I stepped in and I called Peter's mother on the phone, and I told her that she needed to stop her son from harassing my sister.
So it's not physical abuse, it's
It
more
was,
like
it
mental?
was, no, it was physical.
What-
It
what,
was,
like-
it,
like what?
bruises on her body, he hit her, he pinned her down to the bed, he even did the same thing to my niece as well. And one thing you need to know about domestic violence victims is they don't report to the police. Very rarely do they, because there's consequences for that. She reports to the police, and then where does her daughter go when they go to court? Exactly how it played out. They're gonna claim to you that my sister's kids were taken because she missed one court date. I guarantee you it was headed for that regardless of what my sister did or didn't do.
And I would like to point out the fact too that my sister asked the judge, and this is, I believe, maybe on the transcript or recorded. My sister asked the judge in Lockport, she said, "Is there any way that these can be done at a supervised center?" At which point the judge states, "What supervised center? Show me where there's one."
You mean like a YMCA type place?
Like a supervised
Public
center,
setting.
there's like a supervised centers where they have these visitations
It's
occur
a
with
therapeutic
children.
setting,
Right.
especially when there's a history of violence,
Right.
where
I've never
a
heard.
oh, well,
I've never heard of one.
it exists, and it's qualified people who are able to supervise, but to also guide a bond between, because one thing that my sister was very concerned about was their safety alone with their father. And if she was fine, if they could establish a bond, they didn't really have a bond. They didn't call Peter dad. Olivia called, well, I shouldn't say her name, but called her dad, or Peter. She referred to him as Peter, not dad.
And
That's
I-
very indicative of the type of relationship they had.
And I would
He
also
saw
like
her
to
twice a year, every year since she was born. And listen, we're not making judgments on the fact that he was hardly a part of their lives. If a dad wants to step in at any time, he has that right. But when he's being unsafe and he's causing harm to his kids, that's when there is a line crossed. That's when a mother stands up and says, "No, you're not gonna hurt my children." If the court's not gonna protect them, if the police aren't gonna protect them, I need to protect them.
One of the issues is without like a lack of record of this information, the abuse,
Mhm.
no one did call the police.
Well, I
Well-
will say that my sister does have a text message from Peter saying, "I took advantage of you while you were sleeping,"
Yes. and-
which she did contact the Niagara County Sheriff. However, it was brought to my attention that they had stated that there wasn't enough to go on. As far as I'm aware of, they never even questioned Peter about this.
No doubt there are, on the website, there are some odd text messages.
Text messages that talk about him trying to commit suicide.
Right, I see all
if
that.
if she doesn't go through with having an abortion, and you sit there and you think to yourself in the back of your mind, if this is being threatened to encourage something to happen and that doesn't happen, what is the likelihood that harm is going to come to those kids based on research? based on what people say about people who express suicidal ideation and who have a propensity for violence towards others. What is the likelihood of harm to those children when they are with this person? And not one person in this whole situation, from judges to lawyers to police officers, ever investigated or cared about the best interest of those children. If they did, they would have done more. They would have done something, and they didn't.
Does it concern both of you that there does not seem to be an active effort to find not only your sister but these two kids?
Yes. This is another thing. If these people play by the book and everything is, as they say, oh, everything was legal, why wasn't an Amber Alert issued for these children? Why did it take so long for Niagara County sheriffs to put my sister's arrest warrant up on their website? Why was there an arrest warrant pending for how long before they actually made it active? Months before they actually made it active? These are questions that you have to sit there and say to yourself, if they were truly doing the right thing, they were doing things by the book, they would have handled it completely different.
Your sister, obviously there's concern, I know you expressed this early on, but where is your sister?
Yeah.
Where are the kids, and are they okay?
Yeah.
Any ideas? Any
We have
thoughts
none.
about that?
My sister had a lot of friends. I mean, more than I ever had. I mean, I had a small group of friends growing up. She had a huge group of friends growing up. My sister was a very sociable person before meeting Peter Dyer Bakerly. She was an honor student in music. She was an organ transplant donor. She donated to my mother at the age of 19. Everybody, if you talk to her good friends, would say that she was an absolutely loving person, a loving mother. And I don't know. I do not know.
Something changed? Did it change?
I think that she was very, very controlled by Peter, and I think that her kids were important to her, and she saw what it was doing emotionally to them and was very concerned, because for a judge to grant sole custody of a breastfeeding child to the father, you have to wonder.
But it's very rare in
It's
any situation for the
very
father
rare.
to get sole custody of a child.
And Peter Vito mentioned that to my in-laws. It's a very rare thing. Well, tell me what the reasoning was besides missing one court date. Please share with me what in my sister's background, because nothing, if you read the transcripts,
Yeah.
nothing would indicate that there was an issue with my sister. And I think what happened, if they really played their cards better, because I do believe this was a very planned and coordinated effort to steal my sister's children, was they should have done a better job of, putting things in there, because they came after me with a false CPS claim. I don't know if you know about that, but when I called the police to file a complaint against Lisa Vito for harassment in front of my house, a CPS worker comes to my house a few days later with a report that my child, there's an issue because I confronted this woman in front of my house and my daughter was home, but my husband was with my daughter. And he came with a very threatening tone of this is what my badge can do, it can take away children. CPS.
Okay.
And I wanna commend the CPS worker that came to my house, because they very easily could have taken my child away, because I know that there's corruption in CPS as well. He went to his supervisor after I confronted him on the phone. I said, he told me that he could drop the case if I let him in my house to see if my sister and her kids were in my house. And I said, wait a second. So you're telling me that, so Eric from CPS in Niagara Falls told John Hargrave that if he's allowed to go in my house and check to see if the kids are there, they'll drop. He was directed by Eric from CPS.
Now, let me ask you about that. So has law enforcement ever, have they come to your house to say, we want to look around and see if we can find the kids and your sister?
The town of Tonawanda police came the day that he was granted sole custody and asked if my sister and her kids were with me, and I said no.
That's where you live, in the town of
Yes.
Tonawanda? Okay.
And I said, but you're more than welcome to come in my home with a search warrant. And I've been criticized about that from other police officers, saying if you have nothing to hide, then why don't you let people in? But, you know, there's a constitution. I'm protecting my right that you need a search warrant to come in my house. And I said the same thing to John Hargrave when he tried to gain access to my home. If you have a warrant to come into my home, you're more than welcome to come in. But I'm not just going to let these people who are harassing me, and we do come to find out that false claim was from Vito. It was from Vito, because when I mentioned it, he went to his supervisor. And the reason I know this is because I called his supervisor, and she told me that John was in the room with her. And I said, well, what are we going to do about this? Because he told me that he's basically blackmailing me. If I cooperate with him, they'll drop this.
But I guess what I'm trying to get at is, to date, you know, through all this thing, has anyone gone into any of the homes, like
No,
your
neither.
mom has one, right?
Yes, neither
Nobody
one has come through our home with a search warrant, because nobody has any evidence that we have these children or my sister living with us.
Right.
But yet, they've been able to harass us for months on end.
Now, when there's some video of when they come to your mom's house. But let me hold on. You get very angry with them.
Right.
Where is that? Like,
so
what's going on?
I do want to state that I was very angry with them, and I did act in an unprofessional manner, which, to look back at it, if I could redo that situation over, I would have handled it a little bit differently. But from my angle point of view, this occurred after what I believe to be my false arrest. And I was very angry at the time that I believe I was falsely arrested by this Niagara County Sheriff's officer. And the thing is, yes, they're all police officers, and my one experience with what I believe to be this corrupt police officer, how do I gauge someone just by looking at them? I guess is what you could say, but right, if I could have handled that in a little bit different of a light,
I do
would
want to say too, in looking at those videos, it's not normal protocol for 5 people to be at someone's doorstep. That's intimidation, that's harassment. It's one thing if you are legitimately coming and asking questions, that's fine, but 5 people, one of them a U.S. Marshal with bulletproof vest on, ready for combat. I mean, what was that
That was
supposed
at your mom's?
to?
Correct, and I do want to state as well that the time that you see me blow off at them essentially was a second visit. There's a visit that occurred 10 minutes before, where there was 2 officers at my house. One was just standing in the driveway, but the other one actually came to the door. and he said that he had a warrant for my sister's arrest, and is she there? And I said, honestly, she's not here. And I did say to get off the property, at which point, he did, and I did ask him to leave his card there, a little bit rudely as well, which he did. And at that point, 10 minutes later, I have the whole cavalry at my house.
And you can see how easily manipulated CPS is in this particular case, because when my sister was here and going through everything with her children and reporting the abuse that was taking place on these supervised visits, they did absolutely nothing. But when it was Peter after the kids and my sister was not here, CPS was on us like you wouldn't believe. And to watch this play out, I'm thinking to myself, who is CPS working for? Children or the abuser? I mean, I'm trying to figure that out myself, because they did absolutely nothing for my sister, just like the police did.
So, at this point, to me, what I think right now, the most important thing
Yes.
is finding your sister
Yes.
and the kids, right?
Yes.
Isn't that like the most important thing right now? Make sure they're okay.
That is very important. I'm worried. I'm worried. Because like I said, I tell my brother sometimes there's the optimist in me who thinks she's somewhere safe, and it's better than being in a situation where her children are being abused and they're being completely ripped apart from their mother, the only parent they've known their entire lives. And then there's the realist in me who says, I just don't know if it's possible for a mother who's never lived outside Buffalo, New York, except for school, to be on the run this long and be safe.
It's a long time,
It's
right?
a long
Since
time.
February, right?
Yeah.
And who do you believe job it is to find your sister and these two kids?
Here's the thing, I don't know whose job it is. I just know that if we can't even get the FBI to talk to us about what's happened to our family, with the audio that we called them about, with the harassment from Vito that we talked to them about, from the harassment from Peter and his family, if they can't even talk to us in person about those things, then I don't know who's supposed to find them. I really don't.
But you want them to be found, though.
I do.
Yeah.
I do want them to be found, and I do want there to be an investigation into what this family has done, because if the way this case was handled is normal, then we're in big trouble. Anybody that goes to family court who has the money or the connections or whatever to make an outcome happen, then if that's the state of our judicial system right now, then we're in big trouble.
And there's been weird occurrences that have happened at the town of Wheatfield court too. One of which sticks out in my head a little bit more than all the others. So this one instance, I'm about to go in front of the judge. Well, it's actually a case that happens before me. They call this person up to the bench. His name is Casey Kelly is what they call him.
Okay.
He goes up to the bench, and the public defender states, "This is Casey Kelly. He's from a powerful Boston family, and he's here for a parking ticket. Can you throw it out for him essentially, and the judge goes, oh yeah, you know, parking ticket, he throws it right out for him. That's literally right before I go in front of the judge. And what I'll say now is, I could prove this. I could prove this.
They've done a lot to our family, and I'm sure you've probably looked at some of the things, but
Yeah.
my bank situation where they file a supposed police report against me
Now,
for.
who is that? When you say they, you're speaking of,
Well, here's the thing. So my husband and I have been going to the same bank for years. We've been a Citizen Bank member for years, never had any issues, and then I go in to talk about my overdraft protection. My husband receives an email saying that our life insurance policy payments were reversed, and I said, what? That doesn't make sense. So I go to the bank, only to find out that my overdraft protection was removed without my permission or consent or anything, my knowledge or anything. And they have a man there named Joshua Snowden, who I've never seen at that bank before. I don't know anything about him. But he's not listed on the police report. And I had, and the day that report was made was one of the days that I spoke to Joshua Snowden, and he wasn't listed on there. So where's Joshua Snowden on the police report? The police officer that brought the police report to my door wouldn't give me a copy of the police report, which I found strange. It took several days to get it after I foiled it. I do believe that they didn't have an official police report made up at the time, and I think they made one after I foiled it. That's just my suspicion, because what police officer comes to your door, tells you about being kicked out of your bank, and doesn't offer you to look at the report or anything on your front porch. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. So clearly more intimidation. That the charge was second-degree harassment. Again, second-degree harassment.
She wasn't charged with anything. That was
Right.
the alleged charge. If the bank wanted to press charges.
They supposedly closed the case without ever talking to me. I was never escorted out of the bank. I was never confronted by a police officer directly. I do believe that situation was orchestrated as well, because Erie County Sheriff's Department came there with a prisoner van, drove and parked in front of my brother's car outside of the bank, and had his hand on his pistol on the top, and walked into the bank. And I do believe that their plan was to get my brother to go in the bank to check on me, because of the way that man was walking into the bank. What was gonna happen inside the bank, I do not know what their plan was, but I do think that they really tried hard to get him to go into that bank. Because we find out later that Amherst police are the ones that respond to any incidents at the bank, not the Erie County Sheriff's Department. But
You've also, on the website at least, in an email to us, I believe it's your sister, but you're making connections to a murder in the area where you live, and a couple of other fatalities,
Yes.
thinking that maybe these were attempts to murder.
Well, here's the thing. I think that 3 suspicious deaths in a short period of time warrants review, because I have my doubts about the lady, Georgette street from my mother. She was 47 years old, and she's driving to work sitting on her seatbelt and hit not only one but two dogs, or swerves to avoid hitting two dogs. I'm not even really sure of what the details were, but I just find that to be an odd story. I do, because I'm in my 40s, and you kind of get trained after so many years of driving that seatbelt, and she didn't strike me as the type of person to sit on her seatbelt and drive off to work. And another thing that is interesting about her is we noticed a camera placed in her window after her accident,
Pointed right at my garage.
right at my mother's house. I don't know what happened to her, but I do find that suspicious. I do find it suspicious that a woman gets killed in my neighborhood, which isn't a bad neighborhood by any means. People walk around with their dogs and their kids all the time. They claim that it was targeted and wasn't a concern for the public.
Is that the Cretacci?
Yes. And
The mother with the
two children. They said they knew right in the beginning it was targeted and there was no need for concern. But yet there's a reward for information. So how were they able to make that determination so early on that it was targeted and that there wasn't a need for public concern if they're looking for information? I find
They haven't
it,
made an arrest in that case either, as far as I know, right?
Right. As far
But
as
the
I
thought
know.
being that possibly this Cretacci woman and her two children, a case of a mistaken identity, or
I don't know what I do believe that in my thinking that these odd, because we live in Buffalo, yeah, there's crime in bad areas. We're used to shootings and stabbings and, in certain areas, but these are not typical murders or accidents. So you're thinking, so two happened in 1 week and then one happened a few weeks later, so three in 3 week span. That's pretty rare for our area to not have answers to big cases involving death,
So where do we go from here? What would you like to see happen?
I honestly would like someone to investigate what is happening to our family, to find out what happened to my sister, to her children, and to us in the process of fighting for her. I never in a million years thought I would be in this fight. I thought I was going up against a corrupt judge in Lockport. I didn't think I was going up against the FBI, Peter Vito, whoever, because to impede investigations and to skew the narrative, telling people that we're the criminal family, when if you look at this case from beginning to end, you see that things aren't right. Things are very wrong, actually. And if this could happen to our family, then this could happen to anybody. And I think that's what I want, is for somebody to earnestly just investigate the situation, everything that's involved in it, and find out and get to the bottom of why this family seems to have special privileges of some kind, where everybody's just, I don't know, using military helicopters, where Mark Poloncarz spent over $200,000 of taxpayer money for personal protection over a situation that I still think was not real. I do not believe it was real. I believe it was a package that they wanted intercepted for whatever reason, and they tried to pin it on my brother. And the reason I feel that is, again, Erie County sheriffs come to my house asking if my brother lives with me. And I said, no, he doesn't live here. Why would you think that? So then they try to get my brother to say on the phone that he delivered the packages and that he was in Buffalo, in the Buffalo area.
This is when, and just the context of this was when they got those suspicious so-called suspicious
Yes.
packages at the raffle.
I prepared those packages.
That was about
and-
your case.
And it was about my sister's case. And I delivered it to, I had it delivered to 3 places. I'm old school, I print everything out.
Yeah.
Now it's like, okay, forget printed documents, but,
Additionally, you know, I had the whole thing recorded, audio of the transaction between me and the receptionist that accepted the package.
And
I
that's-
thought that they probably had some internal controls where there's a rundown of how to take a package and not to. I just handed it to her. She asked me who is the package for. Said Mr. Polling Cards. She said okay, and that was literally the extent of the conversation.
he had to go through security and through a conveyor belt. Everything had to go through screening, so it wasn't
Right.
like he just walked
in with the package,
walked
yeah.
up.
And the audio is recorded.
And I
of the
just have you
transaction.
know that when I called the detective supervisor, Captain Savage, and I asked him about why they were here at my house, he, you know, when I told him that the phone, he goes, how do you know your brother didn't cause problems with the secretary? How do you know he didn't cause a ruckus up there? Maybe you don't know your brother. And I thought to myself, what is he trying to do? Is he trying to make me think that my brother went up there and caused, why would he cause problems with people we were looking to for help? That doesn't make sense. We would send a threatening package to a person that we were looking to get to the bottom of what was happening with our family. It doesn't make sense. It just doesn't. And so when I told him that my brother recorded the entire interaction, then suddenly it's something different. Something different happened. There was a knife in a tree that caused him to need 24/7 security. I don't know.
You know that, I mean, none of this really makes sense. And
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not quite sure we're gonna be able to get to the bottom of it either, but none of this makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I just think that in order to do things and get down to the bottom of it, that everyone should just stick to the facts.
Yes.
You know,
Leave emotion out of
stick
it.
to audio, stick to transcripts.
Stick to people's responses, because think about this. This is a fair question. If you go to the FBI with a fake audio or an allegation, I would be concerned about being put in prison for
Lying to a federal agent.
Here's the thing. I never in a million years thought that Brian Burns would be part of some bad thing, but you would think that if we went to them with bad information or false allegations, that we would have the book thrown at us for wasting their time making false reports. No, instead we get crickets.
And
Nobody's responding, period. That should be a red flag to people that, wait a second,
No.
why didn't anybody even respond to these people? Why didn't anybody call this family from the FBI and say, but you know, I think I was naive in thinking that the FBI would police themselves. But I think again, we're getting into a protect our own mentality, because if they really genuinely wanted to get to the bottom of what happened, they would have called us. They would have said, Christina, we looked into this video and here's the details about Kelly Marshall and here's the details about this. Nothing.
And I would like to, also state as well that me and my sister Christina, we did take a 6-hour trip down to the Albany FBI field office to try to relay this information to them in person. We made it to the security guard, and she said she would call up, and we were turned away.
The agents there wouldn't even talk to us.
You were gonna make them aware of what? Brian Burns? or-
Brian Burns, of the fact that we had been going there numerous times, and that there was this audio that we were really concerned about, and we wanted answers.
Anything else, Dan?
Sorry.
No,
I think, yeah, that's all I have. That's all I have. That's a
Okay.
lot.
It is a lot.
That's,
Yeah.
it's a lot to digest, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, to you, honestly, and I know this is off the record or whatever, but do you have problems with any of this? Like I mean, as far as like Amber Alerts and
well, we don't understand what's going on. We
Yeah.
have not talked to anyone in law enforcement yet.
okay,
Yeah.
We're going to.
okay,
And then I think, and I'll stay in touch with you, send
Okay.
the email. We are coming from a place where are these kids?
yeah,
And that's what we're gonna focus on.
Where's mom and where's the kids?
yeah.
Yeah, and that's
Right.
what we're gonna focus on, and we think that all the stuff that's happening is.
Also, I'm trying to live another day as well, knowing
see,
that the
this-
FBI audio does exist. I'm
I'm
looking over my shoulder a lot when I go places,
Well,
and I don't go out after 8. I haven't been out after 8 in
But
probably
those
8 months.
comments, the contact, they just come out of nowhere, and I don't.
But they just don't come out of nowhere, because he's asking me questions in the presence of other people.
Yeah.
Was that an in-person? That's an in-person, or was it over the
That's
phone?
an over the phone.
Over the phone. Okay.
And he, just so you know, I called him, I called the officer about my brother's arrest, and I wanted to answers on what happened. And he said the same exact thing to me. He said, Peter's in town and he's coming to your house. And he said it in a very, like in a way where he was trying to put fear in me.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand. I'm like, what is going on? Like, why would a police officer say that or react that way? It's one thing if he called and said, we want to know where Katie and her kids are, we're concerned, the father has custody, fine. But why say it like that? Why approach it like that? That's my concern
And
about it.
additionally, he says, investigate the gray car over it's his sister. Why would my sister's gray car need to be investigated when we're on the phone with the FBI special agent reporting an issue that happened?
I don't know what to make of that.
I got a
I
question
don't know
for
what
you
to make of
about
those recordings and that stuff that
Is
you're
that
mentioning.
another voice? That's, so in other words, when that's being recorded over the telephone, there's another person there with Burns?
That's
Correct.
Yes.
Well, there's
Saying,
Kelly,
like-
there's Kelly Marshall.
It's an unknown
And-
Huh?
person.
There's
This unknown person is
there's
Did you hear that?
one
Yeah, the
unknown
woman.
person.
The woman.
There's one unknown person that says to Brian Burns, tell him he did a good job, and then Brian Burns says it to Kevin. And my concern is, who tells an FBI agent to tell someone they did a good job? I'd like an answer to
That's
that.
not the root of my concern.
Well,
The
it's a
root of my
concern
concern
to me.
is, why would you want a car lockpicked? Why would a
Yes.
handgun need to be there? And why would he say, let's kill him?
So how did you listen back to those and catch all that and say, oh, wow.
Yes,
So
we
you went
did.
back and listened to it.
Yes, we recorded it because we record everything. Because as you
And
know,
I'll take a polygraph,
yes,
and I'll pay for the polygraph. It'll come out of my pocket, stating that that's what I heard, and those are
Yeah.
Yes.
the original audios.
Yeah.
I'll take a
Yes.
polygraph.
Yes.
Any
You
day of
didn't
the week.
manipulate it at all.
no,
I'll take a polygraph any
Other
day of the
than
week.
slowing it down, you slowed it down.
yes,
Well,
Well, someone did.
yes.
it was slowed down apparently, but so what I will say is I'll take a polygraph any day of the week. No
But
problem.
you've never heard back from the FBI regarding your
We have never
concerns?
heard back.
They
from
never-
the
they never
FBI.
followed up with
They
you
have
after you-
never
I don't know if they're
called.
doing something behind the scenes, but I
Well-
think that's getting my hopes up too high.
But here's the
Possible.
thing. This is a question for you. If the FBI is behind this elaborate investigation over my sister and her 2 kids, where are they on the FBI parental kidnapping. Why aren't they on that page? Where are they?
We want to ask those questions.
We'll be asking those questions.
Okay, good, because if you're legitimately doing your job, like not you, but law enforcement, why weren't any of those things done?
So can I ask this question too? I talked to another reporter as well, and he said he could hear everything but one of the things that Brian Burns has stated. What is your view on it? I mean,
I don't know what to make of it.
Do you hear something?
I do hear what
he's saying.
Some of them. There's one where it's a little too scrambled for me to catch.
Which one is that?
I'd have to email and go back and look at it.
Yeah.
But there is one that seems a little scrambled where I'm like, is that what he's saying? Or
And I did
but
talk to
others-
an attorney as well, pretty high-powered attorney in this area. Very good.
Yeah, do you guys have representation?
Sorry, I just didn't want to start.
I talked to an out-of-state lawyer via email, but I don't have one in the state. But anyways, this attorney said, well, maybe you wanted to lockpick your sister's car because they're looking so hard for her. And I said, wait a minute, this conversation occurred before 2/15/2019.
when she disappeared.
Yeah, this happened in
Correct.
November.
So I said that's not even a possible
Theory.
theory based on the fact that she would have been here.
Yeah.
All right. Well.
But that's where it is.
And one thing I did notice, and something that should be concerning to people as well, is when I look on Vito's website and you see the people that work for him, they have FBI experience in their resume.
Yeah.
So obviously,
that's true.
I mean,
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
people are working hand in hand,
Well,
and so why did I think that if I went to the FBI and reported inappropriate behavior that I would think someone would honestly do an investigation? I don't know. Call me crazy. I thought that people just would do the right thing.
So our next steps will be trying to reach out to law enforcement, and so I will converse with you through email that you're coming away, and let you know when we find things out. Let me ask you this: you said you talked to a reporter. Which station did you talk to? Are they working on something? Or?
No, we haven't had anybody touch this with a 10-foot pole. I mean,
So, like, what did the report? Was it Dave McKinley?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes, and that
Yeah,
was
they
a,
took it
that was
just
a
for the
stocked up
package.
package
yeah.
situation.
So they went right over their head that you're involved in
Yes.
this really crazy situation.
Yes, and I'd like to know who sent Troop A state
Well,
police.
they allege in the audio that he was sent by. I said, did Governor Cuomo send you guys out? Because it was not Governor Cuomo himself, but the office of Governor Cuomo. Because essentially, I had sent him a letter stating that I think my life is in danger. And he already said, well, we just got receiving the audio, but do you have more? And I said, well, what more do you want?
Well, so just so you both know that there's a court order that those kids have to be, that New York and Massachusetts both have to use their powers to find these children, right? That order
I'm not,
says that.
I am not disagreeing with what's on paper.
Yeah.
I know what's on paper.
As far as the law
am,
goes, I mean, I don't practice law. I'm not a law major, so I mean, I would have to
But
consult with an
the point I was
attorney.
getting at, but it's the order where he got full custody. It says that New York and Massachusetts have to do, I'm paraphrasing it, but they have to do whatever's in their power to find and unite the kids.
so basically, I
And
guess.
I don't see that effort happening anywhere,
Yeah,
right?
Like
Right,
And
right.
so I want
But
you both
what-
to leave here to understand that that's where we're
That's-
going.
but
we're gonna
what
push it
I'm
on
driving
trying,
that road.
but what I want you to, when you speak to law enforcement, is ask, why wasn't an Amber Alert
Oh, we
issued?
will.
Why
Definitely.
wasn't she listed months ago on the FBI website? Who are the Dyer Bakerleys that you are not approaching this through normal protocols? That is my biggest.
That's our question
That-
too.
yeah.
You want to know.
This is what we want to know.
That's our
Okay.
question too. So,
Because-
They may try to avoid us, we don't know, but
Yeah.
hopefully
Yeah,
they-
they'll most likely say everything we do here is confidential, like a FOIA request.
Yeah, I mean, well, see, that's the problem, is that I'm hoping that through your journalism that you're able to get answers that we can't, because obviously they don't wanna cooperate with us. And,
We'll do our best.
okay.
We'll try, we'll
All
try.
right,
We'll
thank
try.
you.
We'll do the best we
Thank
can.
you.
I really
Yeah,
appreciate
yeah,
you
Yeah,
appreciating
thank
it down here
you.
today.
Sorry, I know it's kind of,
No, well, it's important.
there's so many parts to it, it's,
There are.
yeah.
Thank you
Which
for
is-
coming.
Yeah.
It was
You
a
were
delight to
very
meet
good
you.
girl. Say, I got an astronaut in my Happy Meal.
Ah.
Maybe you come back someday.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank
that's
you.
awesome.
All right, thank you.
Walk you guys out. Where you guys parked, on the side or in front?
I'm on the side.
You wanna walk around?
Come this way.
Oh, okay. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you so much, I appreciate it.
Follow me.
We'll get in touch, okay?
Okay, thank
Take
you.
care now.
I'll go then.
I think the teacher is a transferring
Okay, come this way.
Yeah, they actually gave her a female astronaut.
female one?
Yeah, cute.
Those are astronauts.
Yeah. All right, thank you so much.
Yeah, I'll walk.
Okay,
All right, so, thanks for doing that.
yeah.
I don't know what's going on, folks, but I, no, I don't think your lives are normal.
Yeah.
But
We can't go anywhere with cars
Yeah.
following us.
I'm gonna do my best, okay?
Yeah.
I will email, is it you that's always responding to me?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna do my best, all right?
Neil being tampered with.
Yeah, I guess my biggest thing too is, in doing all of this
Yes.
is how what they're doing to our family is even legal. Like, I mean, months on end of the type of intimidation with military helicopters and whatnot, and I'm thinking to myself, like, how long does this go when you're not doing it the appropriate way, which is doing it,
Locating your sister.
yes, like why?
Leave you guys, unless they truly think that you, that the
Well,
kids are
but
with-
if they truly believe that,
Then
then
they
they
need to search
then they
warrant.
need to get a search warrant,
Yeah,
and
that's the case. Please do
they're
it.
more than
Yeah.
welcome
Why
to.
would you report they're missing first? You know what I mean?
Yeah, you reported a missing to who
No.
again?
Remember he said that he is wrong,
Yes,
and they went to your house.
yes, yeah,
That's what I'm saying.
yeah. We told them that we didn't know anything,
Yeah,
and they have not.
really
I
done
don't know.
anything.
They
Okay.
haven't done anything.
All right.
Except obviously, make our lives a living.
All right, well, we'll be in touch, okay?
Yeah.
Alrighty. All right.
All right.
And can you, by email, let me know what happens with your
Yes,
birthday coming up?
his birthday's on
Tuesday, yeah.
Tuesday.
What's it, 15th at 4, right?
4:30, I thought.
4:30?
15th Tuesday, 4:30, what for?
Town
Town
of
of
Wheatfield.
Wheatfield.
Now, let me ask you, did you at one of these court hearings, did you
Go watch it.
Did you personally, like, turn your back to the judge at one time?
Personally, like that?
Yeah, like at one of your court hearings, did you just not look at the judge and turn your back?
No.
Someone said that
I'm trying to remember because I've been there probably about 5 or
Actually,
6 times.
because I go with my brother every single time. Hayden, every single time, and there's always like a group of people. Like, it's not just the judge. It's they have the town prosecutors. Who's that other lady that usually is there? Town prosecutor. So I think that there were multiple people talking, and I think he might have turned to talk to somebody, but he didn't turn his back completely.
But like I said,
Judge.
the issue with the guy coming up before me, Casey Kelly, this is Casey Kelly from a powerful Boston family, he's here for a violation.
Yeah, right.
As I told you, I could prove it. Should I need to prove it? I really don't want to prove it before the court case.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry
No,
about
but
it.
it's just the types of things that they're able to do. I'm just trying to figure out who
Or
these people
there's
are.
another thing too, where the first cop that came to my house that one day in my door and I tell him to leave, he shows up on my and hands my sister his business card right before I go in front of the judge in order to try to get me essentially what I think riled up. And that's recorded on video of him at my house a different time, and me questioning him about it. He goes, "Oh yeah, I did give my sister, your sister, my card." Because that's she was pointing at me. She was pointing at him, but it was to say, "Isn't that the guy that was at your house that one time?"
Real quick,
Yeah.
Kiki,
Yeah.
have you had any luck with the district attorney in Iron County?
No,
You met with her
We
at all?
don't do pretty
No.
much anything in Niagara County.
we don't do
because
anything.
never met with her?
So get
My
this, we went to the
sister
Niagara
did.
County Family Court one time, and then the Niagara County Sheriff found us trying
Are you running?
So you two have never met with Caroline?
No.
Never?
No, and the reason, not us, my sister and my mom
Only
went.
you and yours?
Well, but here's the thing, they didn't let my mom go in with my sister, and my sister, filled out a complaint about the history of domestic violence with Peter, and listed specifics regarding that, and she pretty much told her, oh, it won't go anywhere because, you know, it would go in front of a jury and they would never, it would be thrown out. And basically, they tried to discourage her
Because you stayed with them.
because she stayed.
All right. Okay, I'll be in touch.
Okay.
All right?
All right.
Okay.
Thank
All right,
you.
Thank you.